If you have round eyes like me, you may feel a little bit left out when so many of today's makeup trends are focused on more of that cat eye elongating shape. I like to do it personally, but I also really love accentuating the roundness of my eyes, and I just feel like there's not enough videos on the YouTubes of how to accentuate or really create a makeup look for round eyes. So I compiled all of my top tips and tricks at every step of this makeup. There's some very crucial points, so make sure you stay tuned. But let's go ahead and get into today's video. So I'm going to be using the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude palette, which is just a gorgeous, cool, neutral palette. So as I was saying, I feel like there's a lot of like cat eye tutorials or like elongating your eyes, but not necessarily a lot for accentuating round eyes, which I do have. They're also a little bit deep set. So starting off, I'm going to grab a fluffy brush and we're going to tap into this light taupe shade, which is called Mesh here. Actually, sorry, I was wrong. We're gonna start with this shade right below it, which is slightly darker than my natural skin tone. So the trick with the accentuating the round eyes is we're not gonna really put any eyeshadow on this outer portion. We're gonna try to keep it just right above the crease and into the crease. If you did want to like elongate your eye, that's where you start to drag things out. So I'm just gonna start blending that in. Hopefully you can see that it is just slightly different than my natural skin tone. So this is going to be our transition shade. Transition shades are important because it's the color between your skin tone and the other shadows. If you've never known what a transition shade is, there's a little explanation. It doesn't take long at all to do that. So next step, we are dipping into this first shade that I mentioned, which is called Mesh, on the same exact brush. And we're going to be just going over that shape. I packed a little bit more of this one on. This one is a lot cooler than that other shade. And hopefully you can see I'm avoiding this outer area here. You can sort of fluff it down. Make sure you're not dragging it out past your brow tail. And this is going to be more of an everyday look, but if you do want a glamified version, for sure let me know in the comments below. So at this point we're already starting to see that round effect where it's just accentuating the fact that my eyes are very round and they don't have this almondy shape that sort of comes out. So the next step is we're gonna start working on the lower lash line. This is a very important step for the round eye makeup, so make sure you stay tuned for this one. We're gonna grab a smaller brush. I like to use something super tiny like this BK Beauty 204 brush. It is very small and densely packed. So for the round eye shape, you can play around with how you have your lower lash line. For me, I like to keep it on the very outer portion. If I start to bring it in, just because my eyes are a little bit more close set, so it relates to that more than the roundness of my eyes, is it just starts to bring things in a little bit more versus having it look more balanced. Again, it's gonna depend on your eye shape, but I'm going back into that Mesh shade right there and only focusing this right on the very outer corner. The lower lash line color is really interesting in terms of round eye shapes because I feel like it can look very weird on me. Also having nothing there, I think accentuates the shape as well because you can just see that natural fold that you will probably have going on if you have more round eyes. So it's just something interesting for you to personally play around with. We're gonna leave that for now and hop back into the upper portion. Now I will be grabbing a smaller, more precise brush, and I'm going to go into the shade next to that first one we used, which is called Tender. So I like to grab a little bit on the brush and just start stamping this on the very outer corner. This will make sure that you get the shape right, and then just follow the natural crease of your eye, making sure you keep this outer corner nice and round and blended using circular motions. As I mentioned earlier, we're gonna avoid putting a lot of color past where our eye shape naturally is. And then I like to go back in with that very lightest shade that we used earlier. If you feel like you need some extra blending help, just to go around the edges. Going back into that same darker shade Tender and this little BK Beauty brush, stamping that on the very, very outer corner, taking it even less in than we did that other shade. Next, grabbing a super simple matte white shade. It could also be shimmery. If you have round eyes, you probably also have this roundness to your brow bones as well. So we're gonna want to accentuate that. So just take a little bit, pop it on the brow bone, I use matte white just because it's hard to find something that is bright enough on my fair skin, but that is just going to bring the look together. I'm also going to pop this on the inner corner and then drag it onto the first portion of that lid. Keeping this inner corner nice and bright will also help to accentuate the roundness, especially of the inner corner. Now, if you really want to accentuate the round eye shape, the key is to keep your lid color light. It is also possible to do it with darker shades, but that might have to be a whole different video. Because we did that brighter inner corner, we're gonna move on to the lid. I'm gonna take this shade, which is called Mia, which is a very shimmery pink from this palette. It's gorgeous. I like to use this on my finger, and since we have a little bit of darkness here, but mostly the lid is open, we're just gonna start packing this on. You don't have to be super precise. I just like to go basically where all that blank space is, taking it slightly into the crease as well. This will help open up the eyes and also emphasize the round shape. Using a shimmer is such an interesting tool for round eyes because it's reflective and your eyes are round. It's really gonna be like extra sparkly and emphasize that even more. Really fun little tip. Before we move on to our upper liner, one of my favorite tricks is to take a shimmery pencil liner. This one is from NYX, which is called the Rose Gold shade. I also just ordered one from Colourpop that has more of a pink tone. But take this, I pop it, you can put it in the waterline. I like to pop it just right on this lower lash line. Because it's a light color, it's not gonna close in the eye too much, and it just goes to emphasize that shape even further. It also just ties in the sparkliness of the lid, which I think is really fun. Next up is optional, but I think that a white liner on the waterline opens your eyes up, emphasizes the roundness, all the things that we need. So you might be wondering if you can still do wing liner to emphasize round eyes, and the answer to that is yes. You just have to follow this technique. So I'm going to grab the NYX Epic Wear Liner. I like to use the brown shade because it's a little bit softer. So the trick here is I always start on the outer corner for my liquid liner, is you want to like have it in a soft sort of sweeping motion versus having it straight out. Might be able to just see better than I can explain it, so let me get started. So it's very subtle, but you can tell that it's flicking a little bit more upwards. A good example of this is how like Taylor Swift has her eyeliner. Like it's not really straight out, it's more of this upwards curve. So I start with that first line, and then I just drag the pen down and connect it to my outer lash line. And then I turn my my eyeliner on the side here and just fill things in. So if you're looking to emphasize the roundness, I would suggest taking it almost all the way in, but not quite. I stop mine and leave this inner corner blank. If you just do the very outer half, it's gonna give you more of an elongated look, but because the liner is following the roundness of your lid, it's going to accentuate that, and then it just follows into like that soft upward sweep. Another trick I like to utilize is if you feel like you need to clean up, maybe they're not completely even, grab a powder foundation. I'm gonna be using a white one today, but you could use one that's just your skin tone, on a small flat brush, and then just follow that shape that we created. This also can help if you feel like you made it a little bit too sharp. You can correct the direction of it a bit. To emphasize the roundness even more, I'm gonna go in with a shimmery shade. This is from the Dior highlight palette, but I like to use this on my eyes on that same brush we used for the matte white. And then you could just layer this right over any of the highlight points. And then I like to go right into that inner corner as well, overlapping slightly with that light pink shade. Using a lot of light colors and shimmers are some of my favorite things to do to accentuate the roundness of my own eye. Now for mascara, I feel like this is a very overlooked component of round eye makeup. When you're putting on your mascara, you may see on TikTok, Instagram, whatever, a lot of people drag it out. That's gonna create more of an elongated wing shape to your eyes. So instead of that, you want to make sure you're just brushing basically straight up. This is going to give you that very like lengthening doll eye type of lash. I'm using the Maybelline Sky High Mascara. So I just like to grab the lashes and wiggle them upwards. And then even on the inner corners, you can slightly go towards the inner portion of the eye. That's sort of how the lashes naturally sit. Same exact thing goes for the lower lash line. Bring them straight down. Another technique that I think is really cool for emphasizing round eyes is you can sort of clump the lower lashes together just with your finger, and it just looks really cool. I also want to really quickly mention that the shape of your brows can have a lot of effect as well. As you can see, mine are pretty arched, but they're also like very rounded and soft. That's kind of just how they naturally grow anyway. And they fit to my eye shape. If I had like a very straight across brow or something a little bit more harsh, it's gonna make my eyes probably look a little bit more elongated versus my brows coming in at the end. You know, we're just getting that very circular shape going on. Those were all of my top tips for accentuating round eyes. I hope you found this helpful. There's gonna be 2 videos on the screen here. Make sure you watch the next one, get some more cool tips and tricks, and I will see you there. Bye.